So I wanted to do this video for people that are not only going through a breakup, but going through one of those almost, it feels like a special, unusual, rare, and I don't mean in a good way, kind of breakup where you not only feel like your heart's broken, you feel like it really, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, but it just feels like somebody just kind of ripped your soul out. It feels like it's hard to breathe. It's the kind of breakup that is so emotionally painful that it feels like a physical agony. And I've been in that situation. I've been a relationship coach. I've been working in the field for over 20 years. But there was a point in time when I went through that breakup. And I remember consciously thinking, I've been trained for this. I know how to win back relationships. I know how to heal relationships. How did I end up here? And in spite of what I know, it feels hopeless. And I remember hearing from so many people, I know you have experience in this, and I know you've probably seen this before, but you don't know my ex. You don't know them the way I do, and I really don't think they're coming back. I really think it's over. So you just kind of get this overwhelming sense of, in reality, you know it's a possibility that they come back, but in your heart, in a way that you know like nobody else, it's really over. So you're not only locked into that pain, but it doesn't feel like that there's a possibility to come out of that pain. When you're in that kind of overwhelming agony, it's like it feels like everything stops. It's like every part of you and every dimension of you is getting ripped to shreds. Your past doesn't make any sense because the person you loved is gone. You don't know how much to trust that what you had with them was even real. You know it was real for you, and you could have sworn it was real for them, but now they're gone. Your sense of the present is thrown into turmoil, and your sense of the future, that's the worst part. How I feel right now, in the moment, feels like it's undeniable. I'm going to feel this way the rest of my life. Because when you're going through the kind of heartbreak that I'm talking about, that feels hopeless, it feels like every second for every day from this point to the time you die, even if you live to be 1,000 years old, you're going to be in this much pain and you can't change it. So I wanted to create a video so that people, when you're in that situation, when you're in that mindset, you can go back to and have some kind of a calming effect so that you can understand that there's real truth, there's real facts, there's real answers to how you're feeling. Because another aspect of that hopelessness is it feels like there is no answer. That's not true. And one of the first steps you have to do, take a deep breath, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but trust me, I've been there. I've coached people through it. I've had more people come back in these hopeless situations than I can count. I'm not promising you it's going to happen for you. I don't know. I don't know your situation. And details matter. The situation, the people involved matter. But I can tell you, I've seen situations that almost everybody would say, yeah, they're not coming back. As a matter of fact, everybody was telling my client, hey, to get over it, to walk away. It doesn't mean anything. But one of the first things you have to do is consciously decide to not trust how you feel. Your feelings, your fear, your anxiety, that feeling of being overwhelmed will flood your brain, literally flood your mind. Now your brain's going to kick into overdrive and it's going to think logically. The problem is relationship dynamics, attraction, loss of attraction, and reattraction. Those things aren't fueled by logic. Right now, if you're watching this video, I could tell you logically to get over the person that just rejected you. If they just told you they don't value you enough to stay with you, don't you deserve to be with somebody that's excited and enthusiastic about being with you? You probably have a lot to offer. They might have broken up with you to be with somebody that doesn't have as much to offer as you do. They don't have the experiences. They don't have the meaningful moments that they had with you. But logic doesn't matter. They're with them because an attraction dynamic got triggered and an attraction with you got lowered. It's got nothing to do with logic, but when you're in the middle of this pain, logic seems to be the thing to go with. What did I do wrong? Let me hyperanalyze. Let me see everything. Let me start analyzing this relationship from the time that I know they loved me 2 months ago or 2 weeks ago. I know they loved me. So what did I do? What shifted? What changed? What did I break? What was the moment that made them go from this is the person I want to be with forever when they wanted to be with me, and now they're positive they want to be with somebody else or anybody else? You start to hyperanalyze, looking for those moments where you cost yourself the relationship. It's a very normal, logical, strong compulsion thing to do. But it's not going to do you any good right now. The more you're hyper-focused on that relationship, going over every little detail, the more evidence you're going to find that you broke it. They might have even told you on the way out, I'm breaking up with you because of this, and this. If you didn't want the breakup, you probably tried to answer them. Well, I can fix that. I can change that. I can apologize for this, and I can work on that last thing. But it won't matter because those things, despite what they're telling you, in most cases, that's not really the reason they're breaking up with you. If you could fix the list they gave you, they wouldn't stay with you because it's an attraction dynamic. Something got broken, something got shifted. So the idea of being without you is more enthusiastic, more exciting, is a stronger attraction to them than staying with you. The problem is hyper-analyzing is literally training your mind to increase their importance. You're seeing yourself through their lens. When you go into hyper-analysis mode, it's almost like you're stepping into hyper-empathy mode. You're looking at everything through their lens. Well, and from their perspective, you're not wanted. From their perspective, you're rejectable. So the more you try to get into their mind, the more you're seeing less of yourself. The more sincere you are, the more hyper-analyzing you are of everything that you did wrong. A good heart that's motivated by a lot of pain is going to come up with a long list of things that you got wrong. And then you'll convince yourself, if I can fix those things, if I can prove to my ex that I can change those things, if I prove to her that I can be the better version, I'll give her or I'll give him everything they ever wanted if they just come back. And if I can let them know that I see it, and then I show the strength to change it, I'll become the perfect person to them. Surely that will be evidence to them that we belong together. But in that state of panic, it doesn't work. Another thing you have to realize, first thing to realize, don't trust what you feel. Let yourself feel it, but don't act on that instinct. That strong compulsion is going to tell you it's hopeless. It's not hopeless. It's going to tell you that you're broken. You're not broken. It's going to tell you that if you can find all the ways that you broke the relationship, prove to them that you can see it, prove to them that you can fix it, they'll come back. All of that's logic and none of it's true. So the first thing, let yourself feel it. Don't try to fight it, but don't trust what that feeling is telling you. Second thing to do, don't hyperfixate on them. The more you hyperfixate on them, like I just said, it raises their value in your mind and in your heart, and it lowers yours. You're seeing yourself through the lens of somebody that just chose not to be with you. And a lot of times, that person knew you better than anybody. You had really special moments, intimate moments, meaningful moments with them. So in some ways, they know you and they've shared moments with you that very few people have. And yet this person that knows you that deeply is the one throwing you away. That hurts. That makes it really hard for you to regain a sense of strength, regain a sense of identity, regain a sense of purpose, which, by the way, are the very things that you need to re-attract them. So your instinct is going to compel you in a very strong, desperate way to jump into doing all the things that actually push your ex further away from you. So let yourself feel what you're going to feel, but don't trust what the feeling is going to tell you to do. One of those instincts, like I said, is going to be to hyperfixate on them. Don't do that. As a matter of fact, pull back. Start reprogramming yourself. It's a contradiction, but to re-attract somebody, the number one thing you're going to need to re-attract somebody, in most cases, is the ability to prove that you don't need them. Desperation, neediness, clinginess, emotional brokenness, to you might seem like grand gestures of evidence of how much they mean to you. Like when you just got broken up with, what we'll tend to think is, if they knew how much I love them, if they knew how much I could change, if they knew how willing I was to change, they'd want me back because they know we were happy. They were happy with me at one point. So if I can be the better version of myself, the same self that they were happy with at one point, if I can be even better, surely that will re-attract them. So you dive into all these things that accidentally project neediness, clinginess, desperation, brokenness. None of those things are attraction triggers. As a matter of fact, those things drain attraction. So if you want that person back, instead of fighting desperately to get to them, one of the things you have to do is take a deep breath, remember your own sense of worth, remember your own sense of meaning outside of them. Now look, if you screwed something up, take accountability for it. Own it, apologize, articulate it, let them know that you see why they're hurt, let them know that you see why they've been hurt to such a point that it cost you the relationship. But don't think that 1,000 apologies is going to make up for 1,000 days of you screwing up the relationship. You might look at it like, well, we were together for 2 years and he or she kept telling me what they needed and I didn't give them to it. You might think, well, we've been together for 2 years and I wasn't listening to what they told me they needed. And since I didn't listen to them for 2 years, I owe them 2 years of repeated apologies. I owe them 2 years of groveling. It's okay. I deserve it. Even though I'm humiliating myself, it proves to them how much they mean to me. This will be evidence that we belong together. No, it isn't. If they broke up with you, they got a sense of relief. They got a sense of self-worth. It was actually a boost to their ego, especially if you were in the power position through the majority of the relationship. Now they're the one in the ultimate power position. They're walking away from you. Their sense of ego, their sense of strength, their sense of this is a new stage. This is time for me. I'm putting myself first. I need to find my own voice. I need to find what makes me happy. They're kind of drunk on that. It's a euphoric feeling to be strong enough to break up with somebody. And then you come behind that, boosting that ego even more. Well, I'll do anything to get you back. I'm so sorry. I realize everything you said. Let me change. I'll do anything to be with you. You're kind of boosting that already intoxicating feeling that they're above you, that they can do better than you. You're reinforcing that by chasing them. You're actually saying you can do better than me. I would be so lucky to be with you. I don't know if you'd be lucky to be with me because we're both focused on all the areas that I screwed up. We're both focused on all the areas that I could have been better. So you're the prize and I'm the lucky one. That's not attractive. Part of why you're in this hopeless feeling too is that you're caught in the middle of human dynamics. You're caught in the middle of human behavioral dynamics, principles that you don't decide. We're not as logical as we think we are. What triggers fear, what triggers love, what triggers excitement, what triggers the deepest emotions aren't something that we just logically go, okay, I'm going to decide to feel this way. We just feel that way. When they fell in love with you, it wasn't a conscious, I'm going to decide to be attracted to that person. When you felt attraction for them, it was the same way. So you have to trust on the dynamics of human behavior more than you trust in this overwhelming sense of loss and this desperate need to get them back. Your desperation is one of the most unattractive things that you can do to try to win somebody back. You're not going to convince somebody to come back to you. It's not a logic puzzle. It's not a math problem. You need to actually trigger the things that make them have a sense of loss. They don't have a sense of loss. I use the house and the porch metaphor a lot. If somebody breaks up with you, it's like they're asking you to move out of the house that you were sharing together. If you don't want the breakup, you're fighting and begging and pleading. And it's like you don't have any choice. The breakup is happening, but you're on the porch. You're trying to talk them out of it. You're constantly banging on the window, looking through the glass. Are you still in there? Can we talk? It's impossible for them to have a sense of loss about the person that's just right there, screaming, pleading, and begging for another chance. As a matter of fact, it boosts their ego. They can see other people. They have no accountability. Their life is wide open. Their ego is boosted. And the person that they're dealing so well with losing is the person that they haven't lost. You're not going to win somebody back by convincing them no matter what they do or say, they can't lose you. You have to do the opposite. You have to trust in human instincts. One of the consistent things about human nature that we've all felt is none of us want to make the wrong choice with the person we're going to be with long term. I mean, we all have a fear of death and taxes, as they say, right? One of the strongest consistent fears that people have is that they're going to end up losing the person that they were meant to be with. We don't want to break up with somebody and then come back and find out 6 months later that they look better, that they act stronger, that they're more popular, that they're more successful. We don't want to break up with the frog and come back and find out that it's Prince Charming. We don't want to break up with the ugly person and come back and find out she's a beauty queen. The truth is, despite how good we might think we are, nobody wants to break up with the person that looks like the person they always wanted to be with. So when somebody breaks up with you, look at it like a challenge. Try to remind yourself of who you were when they first fell for you. When they first fell for you, there's a good chance they saw you as a little bit out of their league. They saw you as somebody that they felt lucky to be with. Project that strength again. That's still you. The problem is that's you underneath all of this pain. We tend to convince ourselves that we need to beg, chase, and plead because, well, that's how I really feel. And one of the things I hear from my clients a lot, I did chase, and I know maybe I shouldn't have because I understand no contact. But the truth is, that's how I feel, and I want to be authentic. I don't want to pretend to be somebody I'm not. That feels like I'm lying to them. That feels like I'm manipulating them. And I don't even want them back if that's how I have to get them back. Well, that's not true. That's who you are when you're in pain. Who you are when you're in pain isn't really the truest version of you. So even though you think you're being authentic by begging and pleading and chasing, that isn't actually projecting the most accurate, sincere, authentic version of who you really are. Who you are in pain is desperate. Who you are in pain feels broken, feels weak, is begging, is clinging to any kind of a hope. That's not the strongest version of who you are. I guarantee when they fell in love with you, it wasn't because you seemed like you couldn't live without them and that you were so needy and you couldn't get out of bed and you had trouble breathing because they weren't right there beside you. I guarantee that's not what attracted them to you in the first place. Why do you think it's going to attract them to you now? You think it's going to attract them to you now because your pain is really strong evidence to you that the two of you belong together. Your pain is not evidence to them that the two of you belong together. A lot of times your pain to them is evidence that they can do better. If I broke up with that person and they're in agony and I feel strong, that's pretty strong evidence that we're not on the same level. I feel pretty good. They feel overwhelmed with pain. They can't stand the thought of living without me. I can't wait to start living without them. That seems like that's not a good match. But let human dynamics, let that human behavior, let that fear of loss, even that sense of ego, even good people have a strong sense of ego. They want to know that they didn't make a mistake. So imagine that they break up with you, and instead of begging and pleading and chasing, they come back in 2 or 3 months and you're thriving. You're doing really well. You're not in just radio silence. You're showing that you're out there living life. You're living an attractive, exceptional life that you enjoy. That's attractive. Take advantage of that fear that we all have, that we're going to end up losing or pushing away the person that we then have to spend the rest of our lives regretting that we lost. Another thing to realize, let your pain, and this sounds a little contradictory, so forgive me, I really hate psychobabble, and this might sound a little psychobabbling, but let your feeling of hopelessness be the evidence that you need to know that you have to radically change how you see yourself and how you see them. And I've been there before. I remember thinking, if I don't get them back, I'm never going to get over this. If I don't get them back, my life, every day, every moment, every year is going to be painful. I started imagining every Christmas would be without them. All of my birthdays would be without them. All the anniversaries would be without them. Every meaningful moment we had, every time that year came around, it would be this torment, this reminder that I lost the person that I know I'm supposed to be with. But then I stopped and realized, if I'm so weak, if I'm so hopeless, if I'm so overwhelmed that I can't live without them, what about that is attractive enough to make me worthy of them coming back? In other words, the man that I see myself as is somebody who's strong enough and has a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose outside of what somebody else thinks of me, even them. So if I felt that hopelessness, I would think, well, if I embrace that hopelessness, if I believe that that's true, that's undeniable evidence that I'm not strong enough to be worthy of re-attracting them. I'm not attracted to somebody who not only loves me, but I'm their purpose for waking up every morning. That's not actually attracted to me. That's kind of obnoxious. So when I imagine myself as the person I want to be, the man that's strong enough to re-attract the woman I want to be with, well, that man loves her with all of his heart, but he's also strong enough to live without her if she rejects him. So if I feel hopeless, that feeling of hopelessness is encouraging me to act and feel exactly like the man that isn't strong enough to re-attract her. If I want to be able to win her back, I need to make sure that I'm actually strong enough to live without her. And I know it sounds like one big contradiction, but it's true. That's why the best path to win somebody back, your best approach and strategy to win somebody back, is identical to the best path to get over them. In both cases, you want to refocus on your sense of self-worth. And yeah, like I said, maybe you made some serious, significant mistakes in that past relationship. Take ownership for it. Hell, even articulate and express your regret, your apology, and mean it to the other person, but don't attach it to a plea to come back. There's a big difference between saying, I understand why you're breaking up with me, and I'm sorry that I hurt you so badly. I'm sorry that I lost this relationship. You were right. I should have listened, and I'm sorry. Versus, I'm sorry, will you come back? If you come back, then I'll change. If you come back, I can do better. One sounds strong, one sounds like it's taking accountability, and one sounds like it's using an apology as leverage to try to beg and plead somebody to come back. So take accountability for it, but then refocus on living your life, reminding yourself that as much as you love that person, you don't need that person to have meaning in your life. That's one of the most attractive, that is the single most consistent aspect that I've seen over 20 years of doing this that wins somebody back. When the person proves that they're strong enough to live without them, then that person has a sense of loss. Then it's nature, it's instinct. It's how we're hardwired. If somebody gives us a consistent sense of value and then takes it away, it triggers an emotional panic. We want to know, God bless. If somebody gives us a consistent sense of value and then they disconnect it, they turn it off, it gives us this instinctive sense of, what's wrong? Am I not as impressive as I thought I was? I know I didn't want to be with them, but why don't they want to be with me? It triggers a sense of loss. That loss triggers an instinctive reevaluation of the thing that they walked away from. And it's even more important if they're with somebody else. A lot of times people say, yeah, but does it matter? What if they already found somebody else? If they found somebody else, I really need to prove that I'm the one they're supposed to be with. I need to really fight for them. What if they expect me to fight for them? When you start competing with somebody else, especially if your ex is in limerence with that other person, you lose. Limerence is built on being new, being exciting, being in almost a perfection state. When you're in limerence, you haven't been with that person long enough to find out their flaws. You're living in a fantasy land. If you're new and you're somebody that's been broken up with, you've already been designated the lesser one. They pick the new and exciting, you're the old and been there. You diving in reinforces the idea that you're too weak to live without them, while the person they're in limerence with, they still feel lucky to be with. You might be the more impressive person, but if you dive in and try to compete with somebody that they're in limerence with, you're going to lose. And you'll actually become an extra boost to their new romance. Did you tell them that you don't want to be with them anymore? Yeah, I told them. They keep reaching out to me, and I told them I want to be with you. Oh, that's sad that they can't accept that we're supposed to be together, and they both feel pity for you. You're elevating their sense of worth while they both look down on you. There's nothing attractive about that. So if there's somebody else involved, it's even more imperative that you don't project dependence, weakness, and desperation. Remind them of who you were when they first started falling in love with you. Remind yourself who you were when you first started falling in love with them. Stop hyperanalyzing them online. Stop trying to find, I call it the chaos chain. When you think the more information you find, the better strategy you can build. The better strategy, the more likelihood you can win them back. The more you follow them online, the more you're collecting evidence, the more you're training and programming yourself to think that you can't live without them. That's why with time, sometimes have you noticed, if it's been a while since the breakup, you're not getting any better? It's because you've been fixated. You're training yourself to believe you can't live without them. You can get to a point that you can't tell the difference between oxygen and them. You can't tell the difference between a want and a need. They're not in the want category anymore. You've proven to yourself, you've trained your own mind to consider them and to see them as a need. Just like you need warmth, just like you need food, just like you need air to breathe. As a matter of fact, you'll feel like you need them more than all of those things. It's because you've been fixated trying to come up with a master plan. Throw the master plan away. The master plan is focused on you. Become the best version of you that you can be. The version of you that wants them, that loves them, but is undoubtedly strong enough to live without them. They'll notice that. It's human nature. Again, we don't want to walk away or throw away somebody that we have to regret losing for the rest of our lives. I know, I get calls from people like that. This person really wanted me. I broke up with them, and they kept begging and they kept pleading, and I knew I didn't want to be with them, and then they got better. I stopped hearing from them. One guy even said it. She chased me around like trash. That's what he said. She chased me like trash for 2 months. And then I noticed she stopped. And then after a while, after a couple of weeks, I peeked over to see what she was doing. And it looked like she looked better than ever. It looked like she had lost weight. It looked like she was dating somebody else. And all of a sudden, I started thinking about her. It took that fear of loss to re-trigger the analysis to make him realize I made a mistake. But the point is, it's human nature. It works. Ask yourself, if you broke up with somebody, think of somebody in your past that you broke up with. And let's say you turn on your computer tomorrow morning and they just got cast in the next Marvel movie. And they just got signed to some model agency, or they just discovered the new algorithm. They just started the new tech company. Their sense of importance, their sense of success, them becoming a better version of the person you broke up with. Are you telling me it wouldn't actually make you second guess your decision to walk away from them? Of course you would. Of course it would. That's human nature. So stop seeing yourself as the broken person who needs to climb the mountain to ascend to the peak to win them as the ultimate prize. You have to stop seeing them as the ultimate prize if you want to have a chance to re-attract them. You have to see the value and the worth and the meaning in your own life without them to be strong enough to maintain the attraction when they come back. A lot of times that person comes back because people do no contact really well, but then that person comes back and realizes your no contact was just an act. You've thought about me this whole time. You're not actually strong enough to live without me. There was never actually any chance of me losing you. You've been obsessed with me even since the breakup. And then they break up with that person again. We kind of call it the whiplash effect. So the number one thing you need to do, it's not hopeless. Don't trust your feelings. It'll feel hopeless. Don't trust what you feel, but let yourself feel it anyway. Don't try to resist it. Don't hyperfixate. Don't trust your own value. Don't trust your own sense of worth. Rebuild yourself, refocus. Don't get caught up in the chaos chain. Don't get caught up in hyper-analyzing them. Have the strength to let go. The problem is we feel like that obsessive analysis, we feel like that pain that we have and that obsession of pulling in data and trying to figure out what they're doing and how they're feeling. Sometimes those are the last two contacts we feel like we have with them. Like those are the last two ropes that I have attaching me to them. Is my pain and my obsession with them. And if I let those two things go, I'm letting go of any hope of getting them back. It's not true. You clinging to those last two ropes is going to be the thing that actually drains all the attraction that was still there when they broke up with you, because you just relentlessly tell them how lucky you would be to be with them. Nobody's attracted to that. Have the strength to let go. Have the strength to turn around and focus on yourself. Rebuild yourself. Remind yourself of your self-worth. Believe me, they'll notice. It's human nature. We want to keep an eye on the person we walked away from because we want to make sure they're not that greatest fear. We want to make sure that we didn't walk away from somebody we're going to regret losing the rest of our lives. But every situation is different. I know the details matter. If I can help, please give me a like, subscribe. Find me at realcoachken.com if you want to set up a one-on-one call. I can give you more specific direction and advice based on your situation. But thanks a lot, and I'll be back soon.